Hey everyone, Rayan here from the Barbecue and Brews show. Welcome to another episode. Today we've got an amazing pitmaster on, Martin Goffin from Red Gum BBQ. Not just any Red Gum BBQ, the most recently crowned Business of the Year in the Mornington Peninsula Red Gum BBQ. So he's coming on to have a chat about how barbecue's, I guess, evolved in the last 20 years, how he's grown, a little bit about his business, and hopefully a few little sneaky little tips about how to cook some ribs, because as he sort of puts it, they are sneaky buggers. So looking forward to having a chat to him. But before I get going, got a quick shout out to our sponsors. So firstly, Brewery Colo, just on the peninsula down here in Ocean Grove. Brewing some amazing beer. So I'm going to crack open the Golden Lager. Just turned 5 in Denver, Colorado. So that works for me. Here we go. Cheers, everyone. Let's kick into it. And of course, our friends at the Rub Society who helped make this happen. And today's rub of the week is Boomer's lamb rub, which is sheared and seared, which he always loves rhyming. So yeah, this is great. So a lot of you guys know I don't enjoy eating a lot of lamb. So, but this rub really helps get things going. So rubsociety.com.au, go check them out. RFTRS for 10% discount. But enough about that. Let me just get the man of the moment. And Martin Goffin on the show. Hey Martin, how you doing, mate?
Hey brother, how are you, man?
Good, mate. How's the head? Congratulations, Business of the Year in Mornington Peninsula. That's bloody amazing.
Yeah, so we were out last night, hence why I'm probably looking a bit worse for wear. But we got 2 awards last night, which was amazing.
Yeah, right.
So we got winner Red Gum BBQ Hospitality Business of the Year on the peninsula, Mornington Peninsula. Not like you're the other one, the Bellarine Peninsula.
Yeah, you're down this way.
And then we won the top dong for the evening, which was the old Business of the Year. So that's what we were doing last night. So
wow, yeah,
amazing. We knocked, there's a lot of wonderful, awesome businesses that were, up for these things, and we managed to take out the prize, which was great. So we're super stoked.
No, that's unreal, man. Congratulations. And I mean, it's definitely good to get that recognition, isn't it? Especially in the community you're in, which is huge. So
oh man, like this is hospitality central down here, man. Like there's a million restaurants and really great ones with lots of awards and chef hats and things like that. So to be held up amongst our peers is quite phenomenal, considering, we're just a barbecue joint. We're not fine dining by any stretch of the imagination. So.
But that's what I kind of love about it too, and I love about, like, obviously preparing for the show today. Just learning about basically how much you've got, so many awards and so many accolades, and good food eats as well. It's like Reader's Choice Awards, and amongst that, and you got a chef's hat sitting there as well, which is amazing. And I think that's the only barbecue joint in the world, is it? Or definitely in Australia.
Well, in Australia we don't have, as you know, we don't have Michelin stars. So the chef hat is the equivalent to a Michelin star in Australia. So there's no other barbecue joints that I know of that have a hat in Australia.
Yeah.
And I don't know if there's any Michelin starred barbecue joints in the world. So there's lots of wonderful pitmasters who have won James Beard Awards and, had phenomenal success in the US. But I don't know if anyone's ever won one of those coveted Michelin stars or chef's hats or whatever. So it's pretty phenomenal, mental.
Yeah, man, that's fantastic. Yeah, congratulations. And I think you were pretty chuffed when you received that award too. So it's great. But with that award, did you know it was going to happen, or was kind of one of those scenarios where it was just a sneaky you got the award scenario?
Well, it's weird. Like, what happened was I think I was away at the time. I don't think I was at the restaurant, but we were told that a journalist was coming from The Age.
Yeah.
And I thought it was because we're where we are. We're a tourist destination, so I thought it was a travel writer. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just coming in and like talking about the peninsula restaurants, things like that. So I didn't think too much of it, to be honest with you. And then I got a phone call from a friend saying you're in the Age on the weekend, and there's a whole write-up on you with photos, and there's a chef's hat and all that sort of jazz. So I didn't know about it at all. It was quite phenomenal.
No, that's congratulations, man. And look, I am just devastated I haven't tried your barbecue. I mean, I've tried your barbecue at Meat Stock, but that I haven't actually been to your barbecue joint. So I'm really looking forward to coming down. And I know,
Well, the barbecue joint is a whole different world compared to
Oh,
festival
that's it.
barbecue.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah,
like we can do all the good things here.
Yes,
Which is,
that's it.
Hold correctly and make sure that everything's ridgy-dig. Festivals are a bit more tricky.
Yeah, I could imagine. Now let's go back, Martin. I know it's sort of been I guess 20 years now, really, when the passion really kicked in. So 2002, you're traveling the US with your now wife Melissa. And look, it's what made you go, man, this barbecue's amazing. I need more of it in my life.
Well, it's funny, really, because as you can probably tell, I'm not American, and I'm not originally from Australia either. So, like the food scene in Britain growing up was a bit average to say the least. It's had a bit of a food renaissance in the last 20 years or so as well. But so going over to America and just being surrounded by all these different cuisines, I was having Bahamian food, like conch fritters, and I was inundated with like sensory food overload. And one of the things that really stood out to me over there was barbecue, because it's pretty. You've fallen in love with it. You know how good it is.
It's unreal.
So over there, then I came back to Australia and really just kind of started to tinker around with it in the backyard and originally gas smoker. Like, this is how long ago it was. Not gas smoker, just barbecue with a little tray of like wood chips and trying to get flavors into a rack of ribs, and that's how it really all began. And I'd get I'd get cookbooks sent over by family and whatnot in the US. And my first ever barbecue cookbook was Dr. Barbecue, like Ray Lamprey. Like, he's sick, man. Like, I still use his stuff in like rubs and all that sort of stuff to this day. Like, and my cookbook is like manky. It's got sauce all over it, bits of rub. So that's kind of where it all began when I went over there. And then what happened next was we Melissa and I would often, over a frothy in the backyard, talk about all the wonderful things that we thought would translate really well to Australia, like what the food things that we missed from the States. And barbecue always popped up because I was cooking it all the time in the backyard. I've got friends who'll tell you stories of introducing them to pulled pork for the first time, and like doing all these things that they'd never heard of, and and they were loving it. So I kind of continued with it. But that's kind of how I went about it.
And I think it would have been interesting. So I mean, like I'm definitely like barely a toddler in the barbecue scene from just years of experiencing it. But even going back 5 years, I mean, besides the dodgy ribs you had at restaurants or pub meals, that were never really barbecue ribs. Like, it just didn't exist, and it was just, I mean, and then for you to sort of, I guess, kick things off, and you got to, I'm not sure when, but you bought your first smoker. You sort of put your savings into a brand new, like a new offset smoker. That was a bit of a commitment there.
Yeah. So what happened there was I went on paternity leave. Like, I worked in local government for, crikey, like 10 years. So it was quite funny kind of be winning awards from local government now, like Restaurant of the Year. Work for them. You know what I mean? So, like, what happened was I went on paternity leave with my son, and there's only so many kind of nappies you can change and clothes you can wash and trips out to the shops, because like a trip to Coles was like a day out for me.
I know.
I got bored. Yeah, well, most dads and mums who've been on. I
just got to get to the shops. I just want to go to the shops.
Well, yeah. Like, it's an amazing. You've never realised how exciting going to Coles is. So we went. So what happened was, my son was a really kind of amazing sleeper. He slept like all the time. He was great. He's still a great sleeper, to be honest with you. And so I got bored, and I'd be sitting at home, I'd be watching Man versus Food, and I'd be watching all these American shows on telly about food. And I just was like, at some point, I just rang up the wife. I think she tells it a different way. I'm pretty sure I called her. She reckons I spoke to her face to face, but I'm pretty sure I called her. But like, we'll differ on that one until we, we die, I suppose. We're in the graves. And I said, I want to open up a barbecue joint. And she was like, yeah, that sounds like a great idea. And I was blown away by this. So what happened was, and this was back in 2011 when this first kind of, because Ashton was born, my son, in 2011. Like the alarm bells kind of, went off, back then, and just going, like, we're going to take all our savings. We had like 10 grand saved up, man. And like, I went to Paul from Silver Creek, who's like the best pit builder in the country.
Yeah.
Like, none.
Yeah.
Like, so I went to him, and like, this was when Paul was kind of starting off. And so he built me, and what I thought was a massive cooker at the time, like it's a little tiddly thing now.
Yeah.
It was huge.
Compared to the 3 you've got at the moment.
Yeah. But it was like all my money in the world. Like, so I spent
man.
I spent money on building a cooker, and I spent money on branding. Then I didn't have much money left over for a marquee, so I spent $130 on a marquee. And then went out into the world and done markets and events and like local things for like 3 years, like 3.5 years. And we're doing pop-ups at different places, at breweries, and, just try to grow the business slowly and organically. And eventually it took on a life of its own. And now we're winning stuff, which is quite nuts, considering it was me and the boy at home during pat leave going, this is what we should do. Yeah. And then we went out and did it together. So it's crazy.
Very happy that you've done.
Well, it's just barbecue didn't exist back then. Like, it weren't a thing.
No, not the way it is now. Or not the way it was in the US, I suppose, at the time as well. And then, I mean, obviously, it's one thing to have pop-ups and one thing to, do the markets and things like that. But then you went, all right, I want a permanent residence. You went scouting around. But why did you choose the truck mechanic workshed? Like, what drew you to that location? Because it's very unique.
It's funny, man. Like, in the US, like truck stops, and like I used to go, like, my mother-in-law lives in a place called Amelia Island, which is like northern Florida, kind of Georgia border, right? Mm-hmm. And like they took me to a place called TJ's, right? TJ's is a burger shop in an old like, and it's great, and everyone goes there and they love it. So like, that's kind of, like, barbecue's big, like smokers are big. You need a big space. So you need big tables, oversized tables. Like, all our tables up at Red Gum are big bench seats. Like, that I had this. I tell you the experience why I drew on that. I used to go to a place for like it was like family style feed at a place called the Florida House on Amelia Island as well. And it was like they brought out like big corn casseroles in a big bowl, green bean casserole, like all these different things, right? And you sat next to a bloke I didn't know. And he was hoeing in. A person across from me, I didn't know they were hoeing in. So he kind of took this inspiration of like this communal dining thing, which is quite popular over there. So that's why we've got the big communal tables where everybody comes and, like, you probably, if you've got a big group, you'll probably be with your mates or your family. But if you're a smaller group, you'll end up sitting next to someone you don't know, like 100%. Yeah. That's part of the gig, like, what it is. So, but the big shed came about because I couldn't find anywhere else, really.
Yeah,
like,
okay.
It's really hard to find a space which is commercially zoned, which is planning jargon, which we're still up against to this day, planning jargon. So it was commercially zoned. It was big. It was in Red Hill, which I had a pop up here. So I knew the area really well, and I loved it. And there's no better drive in the world than going from where I live in Mount Eliza up the hill into Red Hill. Like, it's to go past cows and you can see the ocean, the bay. See the bay on one side. So I knew the area really well and loved it. So the fact that, and this place wasn't even up for lease, to be honest with you.
Yeah, right.
It wasn't, like, it was empty. And the way the story comes about is that I was working with local government at the time to find me a space. They were working with me, which is kind of cool and unique at the time.
Yeah.
And someone mentioned this place. So we looked into it, right? And it was wasn't up for lease, and so I found out who sold it. So I went back online and looked in the listings of the building and found out who sold it. So I called up the real estate agent who sold it, and the bloke told me that he could lease this place out 100 times over, but the landlord didn't want it. He didn't want to do anything with it.
Oh, right.
So my landlord's a United Petroleum company, petrol company.
Yeah.
So I rang him up. I said, this bloke, he doesn't know what he's talking about. So I rang up United Petroleum and said, can I lease this building in Red Hill? And it took him a while to kind of fathom out like what I was talking about, because they've got so many properties. So the bloke said to me, give me 2 days, I'll get back to you. 2 days go past, he gives me a phone call. He goes, it's yours if you want it. And we nutted out a, heads of agreement, which is a leasey type thing where you kind of talk about all the things that you want and what they want. And then literally we got in the building and we started building and we started fitting the place out. And we opened this in 2016.
Yeah. And it was you and Melissa sort of doing a lot of the stuff hands-on, wasn't it? Getting it built up.
Because we don't come from cash.
Yeah.
We're not wealthy people. Do you know what was weird? And you know this, because no one knew what barbecue was, no one wanted to invest in us.
Yeah. Of course.
No one knew. They were hospitality's hard, really hard business, small, slim margins. You've got this idea of fitting out this whopping great big place. It ain't going to work. And I had friends come up to me after we've had all our success, man, and they've gone, I couldn't see it.
Yeah, right.
I couldn't see the vision. They were like, I thought you were going to lose all your money. You were going to go bankrupt, I couldn't see it. And then they're like, I just can't believe you did it. So that's how this building came about. And it's been a real journey. So yeah, it's bankrolled by me and my wife, essentially. I borrowed against our home. Got as much money we could squeeze out of the bank as we could, which we bank, and NAB were the only bank that would touch us as well, which is weird.
Yeah, right. Wow.
It was a local banker who saw the vision as well. He's like, I know Red Hill. I grew up down the peninsula. This has got legs. I see it. I can vision it. So this bloke, Paul's his name. He went in battered for us, and he got us some money out of NAB. And now, nowadays is a lot different. You know what I mean? You can go to the bank and get whatever you want because you've had a few runs on the board.
You've had a run, yeah.
But this is it's a dream, man. Honestly, I can't tell you enough how incredibly fortunate and privileged I feel to have this happen and it work and people dig it. I'm lucky.
Yeah.
I'm really lucky.
And I think even more the fact that I think that the level of people digging it has sort of increased so much as well.
Yeah.
Like you said, no one saw the vision, and I can understand people going that makes no sense because they have no idea the magic you're about to bring to the area.
Yeah.
But then on top of that, and then people have realized the magic, and then all of a sudden they're like, oh my goodness, people are wanting to come down. So that's amazing, man. And and then you sort of did some conscious decisions. In 2018 you went, okay, I want to be a B Corp restaurant.
Yeah.
I know we've spoken about it in the past, but maybe give us a quick intro. Why B Corp and why is it important to you? And how does it impact the world, I suppose?
Well, from the very first, so we've got principles like any good people have. You have a set of principles that you want to live your life by, right? Mm-hmm. And one of the things is if we're going to own a business, we don't want to be a business that's purely for profit, just to make loads of cash and be around in a whatever. Our business, if we're going to own a business and it's going to be a meat business, we need to do free range pork. We need to do grass-fed beef. Both of these two things have been free range chicken, but free range chicken is a lot easier to do than. Mm-hmm. And the difficult cooking a grass-fed brisket versus a grain-fed brisket.
I was going to ask you that. That's the whole.
Harder.
Much harder. Yeah.
Yeah, there's less intramuscular fat. They're smaller, they're inconsistent. But the reality is that cows aren't supposed to chomp on grain all day. You know what I mean? It's not good.
That's true. Yeah.
And go and feed lots and stuff and I've got nothing against any of these things really. A good farmer's a good farmer, but just purely from shipping grain around the world to feed cattle just seems a bit bonkers to me. And pigs are clever, so I want pigs to have a nice life. But so these were fundamentally important things to us, and we've done this since day dot. And I suppose when you kind of get to owning a restaurant, you want to extend your values in everything that you do. So, you want to make sure that you use it. Like we've just been certified plastic free as well. Like
cool.
Do a plastic free business. So all our takeaway packaging is plastic free. There's some things you can't get away with having plastic, like your briskets come in vac sealed. Like, I can't dodge that. But anything that we have in the business, like which is kind of, up front and you're being given to the public is plastic free now. So which is great. So you want all these things to flow through.
Yeah.
And how you treat your staff, pay them, look after them, care for them, your food that you send out into the world, making sure that you buy as local as possible. So all our wine is from the Mornington Peninsula. Investing back in your community. You buy wine from people that grow it on your doorstep, and you create a relationship, and you support one another in your endeavours, and that's been really important to us. So, and we could have gone for cheaper wine. I could get wine from somewhere else and flog it more cheaply. So our wine list isn't cheap, right?
Yeah.
Not a cheap wine list, but it's an important thing to do, which is support local. So we did that. And so what B Corp does is measures you against a set of, standards to give you an accreditation saying, yes, you actually walk the walk instead of just talking the talk. You know what I mean? Like you do things. Most of your suppliers are within a 20K radius or whatever, and so we got this award so we can hang a hat on and say, like, we talk about these things, but, these are actually things that cost money to the business. These aren't the cheapest options. And this B Corp certification proves that we've had a third-party auditor come in and go, these people actually do what they say. So it's always been like these things are important to us, like they've always been important. And like I've got a beer here. I don't drink in it because I've been out last night having a jolly. So this is so we try our best to use we only use Victorian beer, right? So Victorian craft brews. So this is Bad Shepherd, based down in Cheltenham. This is our Blind Pig Lager that we make with those guys. It's like a contract brew thing that we've got going on. So
excellent.
So we do these things, man. Like it's important. So it is super. Like we just got recertified as well, which took a year. Like it's not an easy process. A lot of people don't do it. Like it took a year from recertification. So your B Corp certification is coming to an end. We need you to recertify, and it costs you money as well. Like it's not like it costs your staff, it costs your time and energy. You know what I mean? Like to do these things. So, but it's like we're the only B Corp restaurant in the country, like the only one.
Yeah, right. There you go.
It's completely unique. I don't think we're the only B Corp restaurant in the world, but that'd be cool. But we're the only B Corp. I think we're still the only B Corp on the Mornington Peninsula, but someone can correct me if I'm wrong. But we were the only one for a long time down here.
Yeah, okay. So I mean, it's kind of an interesting one because, like you said, you're accredited, and there's, like you said, not many other restaurants doing it. So if someone wants to try and find and support other companies who are B Corp certified, how would they find out more about it?
On the B Corp website, that's probably the best place. But look, just look on packaging because they'll have a little. I don't know if I've got a little B on this, but all of my packaging for my rubs, it will have a B, like a B Corp. Here's like their logo, so you can look for that. But businesses like Patagonia, B Corp.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Like, okay, yeah.
Ben and Jerry's, B Corp. Like there's you'd be surprised how many there are, really.
Yeah.
And it's just in the day and age where we've got all the issues surrounding climate change and all that stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
More and more businesses need to be. Well, we're nimble. We're nimbler than governments are to make real change. So, these businesses that are B Corps are the ones that are really being super progressive in lots of different kind of areas of life on this planet, I suppose, which is a bit epic, but that's kind of the truth.
Yeah. And I think, look, it's I think it's the small changes that are made in the community that really make a difference overall. You know, yeah, it's hard to do it at the higher level, but you know, if you can make a change in the areas you control,
Yeah, and
kudos
we
to you, man. That's unreal.
and we do it, and you know, like we use compostable vac seal bags, right?
Oh wow,
So if you
yeah,
get
right.
like, so we've got these
I didn't know
subscription.
that existed.
Yeah, no, well, no, not many people do because they cost an arm and a leg.
Yeah, okay.
These subscription boxes, right, which are about taking you on a barbecue journey through the South. So, like this week's barbecue subscription box went out, which was like a North Carolina box, right? So we had Lexington dip. We cooked all the shoulders on the pig cooker instead of doing it in the smoker. So the different flavors, like pig cooker tastes more like grilled meat versus
right.
meat. So we did that, and like the product that we sent out was in these compostable vac seal bags, but they cost like, you know, they cost like $1 compared to like 10 cents.
Yeah.
But like you do it because it's right. Like, and,
Yeah.
You know, if more people do it, the cheaper they'll become.
Yeah.
And we'll all be on the same path together. But like we do these things because it's important to us.
No, it is, and I think it, you know, sort of, it's something I want to be more active about, but I do sort of actively, you know, we sort of soft plastics are a big thing in our household. You know, we sort of collect that back and take it back. I'm glad there's a process for that now, you know, because I mean, that was, you know, 5 years ago.
Yeah.
I was just a bucket of soft plastics just getting chucked in the rubbish and heading to landfill, right? So, it's kudos, man. I really sort of, you know, find it great that you're doing that much, and obviously it's costing you time and money to do this. So I definitely want to touch on that one.
And it's like we compost all our food waste, right? All our food waste goes. So we work with Cleanaway, who are big, you know, they drive around in big trucks, collect your rubbish. They've got bins, right, that can take all your organics.
Yeah, right.
So all the organics, so everything that gets wasted from the production itself, right? And then the leftovers that come back on plates, because a lot of the food waste from this business isn't from food production. It's literally what comes back on people's plates, right?
Yeah.
Bones and bits of fat and, you know, a bit of broccoli they didn't eat, or mac and cheese that the kids didn't want. Yeah. So, and that all goes in, historically for us, before we started doing this, would go in the bin, right?
Yeah, of course.
Go in the landfill. So now we've got a big industrial composter bin, which goes out and gets industrial composted. So all our food waste gets churned up and turned into dirt.
That's unreal. That's unreal.
Yeah, no one does it now. Like, I think there's one other business on the peninsula who does the epic food waste compost bin, because it's enormous. Like it's.
But even that, I mean, apart from just the simple cost of obviously having a whole different bin to do it, none of that comes free. But even to even to have your staff to work and go, okay, well, that goes into that bin, that goes into that bin. That's all time and effort, isn't it? That's a fair commitment. Yeah. And then you gotta be, as opposed to the old days where you just dumped it into a bin and had a magnet around the bin so it catches any cutlery that you might have thrown in as well. Yeah, it's come a long way, mate. But that's I didn't even know that was a thing.
Big industrial composters. Like I don't know, it's a thing. But you got to always be thinking about these things. You know what I mean? Like, it's like I want to minimize my impact on this planet with running a business. Like, if I'm going to run a business, I want to create as little harm as possible. I
love that.
To where we are, and this. So we do all these little things that hopefully accumulate into like lessening the impact that we have. You know, because we all, like, let's not forget, like, this is a for-profit business. Like, we've gone into business because we want to, you know, we need to make money to pay our staff, pay suppliers. Melissa and I need to live, occasionally go on a nice holiday because, you know, you work hard, you want one. But, you know, like, while we're here, let's do no harm or as little harm as possible.
Yeah, no, 100% agree. And I'm kudos for doing it, mate. And I think it's good to be. I feel like you're leading the pack with that one, which is amazing. Now, look, coming back to a little bit more about barbecue. and I know how many you got, but talk us through the pit room, because I know there's a whole bunch of people that'd be interested in that. You've got three massive smokers there, and that's how do you have you got names for them?
Yeah. We got Willie, Patsy, and Dolly. Oh, country singers. So Dolly Parton, Willie Nelson,
Yeah.
Patsy Cline.
I love Patsy Cline. I'm a closet Patsy Cline fan. I'll be honest. Yeah, I don't know what it is, but she takes me to places, and it's great. But so and do you is it kind of like each one cooks a different protein, or do you mix and match, or how do you deal with those?
Right. So it's less to do with protein, I suppose. It has more to do with size.
Yeah, right. So they're different sizes.
Yeah, it's all the big stuff like pork shoulders, briskets. They live in their own pits, so you don't want to be opening the doors very often. So
no,
fill up a whole smoker with just briskets, and I'll fill up a whole smoker with just pork butts, and then chickens, like chicken breasts or chickens, will live in another one because you're opening the doors that much more. So that's the way.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
So you're not open, because once you put your briskets in, you don't want to stick chickens at the other end because you'll bloody lose all the heat constantly opening up that door, cook your chickens, and
that's true.
Make sure they're done. So we don't really, it's less about protein. It's more to do with size, to be honest with you.
Yeah. So how many briskets do you pop in at once?
Depends.
So how many briskets can you rather?
I don't know. I just fill it up.
Just fill it up.
Well, maybe about 30 briskets at a time.
All right, that's a bit. I like it. Yeah, it's about 28 more than I can fit into barbecue, so that's pretty good. And
then
I'm trying to work out the size ratio that I've got.
Well, it's like there's usually about 4 briskets to a box. You might prep 6 or 7 boxes.
Yeah, right. Okay.
Like I cook loads.
No, I mean,
but we're not Aaron Franklin, man. Like he's cooking through the night all the time, like because he's got the demand. Like we cook, if demand increased, we'd have to start cooking through the night because I need the retails, the space in the pits to cook it. So So we go, we just go by size more than anything. And we just use Red Gum all day long.
Yeah, that was one of my question. I was assuming that the name had some connection to the wood you were using, and so you use Red Gum predominantly, or only Red Gum?
Only Red Gum. So the reason, if you go cook in the south, so I spent a bit of time in Georgia cooking barbecue there, and we use predominantly post oak because Georgia's full of oak. You remember the film Forrest Gump?
Yeah.
So that was filmed in Savannah, Georgia. And if you go to Georgia, it's full of these live oak trees, and they're gorgeous, and they've got Spanish moss coming down, and they're just quintessentially the most kind of southern thing you'll ever see in your life. They're gorgeous, right? So barbecue joints tend to use the wood that's local to them. Mm-hmm. So the firewood of Victoria is Red Gum. There's an abundance of it. Like when you go to Servo and pick up firewood, it's going to be Red Gum. It's all Red Gum. So that's why we use it, because it's this connection to place much more than anything. I'm not going to be shipping down loads of iron bark to feed the cookers here when I've got Red Gum on my doorstep, and it burns, and it's it's economical in terms of price and all these different things. So that's why we use Red Gum, and it's just use it all day long. Get big bins of it. You ever go to a barbecue joint and you don't see a big pile of wood somewhere? Be questioning. Just be questioning if it's barbecue or not. Like, you know what I mean?
No, I got a bag of iron bark sitting next to me here in the. It's not my studio; it's my garage. But it's
mates. It's fine.
But look, it's how much wood do you sort of go through in a sort of average week?
We do it by pallet. We do it by apple crates.
So, I saw the photos and videos of those. Yeah.
So the apple crates we get filled up by. We've got a garden centre like 2 doors down, like garden supply joint. So he comes around, he picks up the apple crate in his forklift, and then he pops off, and then he comes back with a full thing of apple crate full of Red Gum. And I reckon they're about half a ton a piece.
Yeah,
Probably
right.
maybe I don't know. But it really depends on the time of the year. If I'm the only
Yeah.
person in the world who buys more firewood in summer than he does winter,
Yeah,
like
right.
because we're just in summer with there's such a high
So
demand.
busy. Yeah.
How
Yeah.
can we go through? I don't know, half a ton a week.
Yeah, right. Okay.
You
There
know?
you go.
Not
Yeah,
loads.
look,
Like it's pretty efficient, man. Do you know what rinses through? Rinses through firewood. If you ever cook whole hog and you with a burn barrel, right?
yeah.
You will rinse through firewood. Like
Yeah.
it's so uneconomical. It's unbelievable. So, it may take what could last me a week in the big cookers, like the big
Yeah.
offsets. I can use in a day, cooking one pig. That's how
Yeah.
inefficient it is. And you burn it down in a burn barrel. You get the coals out. So it's. So I tend to use charcoal for that now. Red gum
Yeah.
charcoal. There's a bloke
Yeah,
down in
right.
Carrum Downs, in the industrial estate near us, who sells
Okay.
just pure red gum charcoal.
Really? Oh, that's
Yeah,
cool.
and
Yeah.
ironbark charcoal. So
Yep.
I go down there and pick it up, and we light it, and we use that because it maintains the heat a lot better than these tiny little embers that red gums give off.
Yeah.
Burn it down
Yeah.
because they look like little pebbles, like when
Yeah.
you burn wood down. So yeah.
That's
Anyway,
yeah. Look, and
yeah, firewood's important. It's a really important thing in barbecue.
it is. And look, I'm very very new to the offset smoker with sort of using firewood, and I must admit I've sort of fallen in love. It's just I find I get because I create a bit of content videos and things like that for a couple of people, and then I sit there and I sit there and just look at the fire, and I can't leave. I find I can't leave the pit. It's just such an addictive. I can sort of see how the addiction comes through, especially if you spend a lot of time over in the States and learning about it. But yeah, it is so addictive. It's such a I don't know. It just feels like you're doing like pellet smokers and things like that. That just seems like the set and forget love. You lose the love so quickly for it. You're like, oh, yeah, cool. It's running, whatever. But then it's just like, I gotta get the wood in. But then you can like, and then the pure joy you get from going like, oh shit, I've got my temps down, my coal bed's crap. Let's just bring it back up, and then you see it come back, and then you're like, oh, cool, I'm back. Cool, let's keep going. It's so good, and obviously yours is like 10 times bigger than mine. So it's
but it's a lot. The bigger you get, the more forgiving it is.
Oh, right, it's okay.
Because you build a big fire and you burn down the coals, and then it just because my pits are 10 mil thick, like they're.
Oh wow! Yeah.
So they're like old LPG tanks.
Yeah.
So they're monstrously thick. So they maintain temp really, really well. And you build a big enough fire, and you burn it down at coals, and then you add more wood on top, and it's a lot more forgiving. Where if you've got a small cooker, right? If you've got like a small offset, like the radiant heat of your firebox is so incredibly close to your meat. Like you can destroy it much more easily in a small cooker than you can a big one. I promise you that. Like it's much harder. It's much harder in a Weber to cook a brisket in a Weber than it is my big cookers. My big cookers.
No, that's it.
Do their thing.
And look. Sorry, what you were saying?
Oh, just like you get used to it, and you just you kind of have this kind of symbiotic kind of relationship with your cooker, and you know when it's not doing its thing that it should be doing, or you can smell. Like I can smell if it's running too hot from the front of my building. This is a 900 square meter building, mind you. Like it's a whopper. Yeah. I can smell if the pit's too hot. I can smell it. And I've often run down when, like I've had new guys cooking barbecue, and I've smelt it from the front of the building, run down there, and sure enough, man, like my briskets are running at 300 instead of 250. I can honestly, like you get that good at it. Like you can smell. You can smell when it's wrong.
And look, I mean, again, look, you brought up, you guys starting, you went from, you was just you making barbecue, selling to people in the pop-ups, and now you've grown. Now you've got a bunch of chefs, a bunch of pitmasters and things like that. What's, that transition and that letting go, what was that like? Because I know that it is hard because it's kind of your baby and you want barbecue cooked in your way.
Yeah, and
was that difficult?
Yeah.
Okay, great. We'll move on from that one.
It was really difficult. But what you need to do is train people well. You know, my chefs have got skills in food, so they're talented human beings in regards to food. And you teach them, and they follow the steps. And you know, none of this, like I say in classes, like none of this is rocket science. Like I'm not curing brain cancer or like curing third world hunger. Like I'm cooking a brisket. Like there's a few principles that you need to know, and it's essentially temp all day long. Like time, like I tell people, time is irrelevant. Time's not important. A brisket will take as long as it's going to take to cook. You know what your job is to make sure that you're maintaining a steady fire and steady heat. You know, and if it does go up and down like it's a fire, it will go up and down. It'll burn and it'll go up, and then it'll kind of get to coals and be less hot. Like, so you need to just manage that. And if it's, you know, if you're cooking at 275 instead of 250, that's fine. If you're cooking at 225 instead of 250, that's fine. Like I don't cook anything over 300, and I don't cook anything at 200 because one's too hot and the other one's too cold. But really, that's what it comes down. And then it's internals, the internal temperatures. Like when do you want to wrap? When do you consider a brisket to be done? Like, is it 200? Is it 195? Is it 205? Is it 210? Sometimes I'll cook a brisket at 210 because when I've probed it, it's probed really like stiff. Like the probe hasn't gone in really super easy like butter, but it's probing to like 205 and it's not, you know, it's not considered soft in my brain. So I'll push it to 210. Push it like it don't. Like there's no hard and fast rules with this stuff, man. It's like whatever you like. There's a set of ideas and principles and, you know, temperatures that you can go by, but like it's not the be all and end all. Like, you know, some brisket to cook. Yeah.
No, that's it. And I think that's the thing I've sort of learned and sort of slowly understood over the last few years is just going that give up on time and let it run its course. So it's been interesting. And I think, I mean, if you put on someone new, what's sort of the first few things you'll teach them? What's the, you know, obviously you've gone through a few principles there, but if if they were going to take on their first sort of cook, is that what protein would you get them on? Something like pork or something like chicken, just to get them understanding the. Sorry,
chicken.
We joke, but at the same time, it is one of those proteins that's good to learn on because, like, it's more forgiving.
So the way I go about training, I've got a book that I've written, like an in-house manual.
Oh, cool.
On how to cook barbecue. I suppose the first thing that we do is run through the safety stuff, like, you know, where are the CO2 extinguishers? So, you know, we've got CO2 extinguishers and dry powder in the pit rooms because if you do have a bit of a fire, it's just carbon dioxide. It's not going to ruin your cook. Because little spot fires do happen from time to time. It's like you're cooking with something that's fatty, and there's a story. It might go up. That sort of stuff, flue fires. You know, just we go through all that stuff together. Then I show them how to build a fire. So how I like a fire built, how big I want it, where I want the fire placed in the firebox, the distance between the first piece of meat and that fire. You know, like we go through that stuff, and then we'll just go through, you know, how to put a brisket on. Where does it go in the pit? Where do I put it? You know, it's not right at the front of the tray. It's towards the back end of the tray, so you create a bit of distance between the radiant heat of your firebox and the first thing. And, you know, where are the hot spots? Like it's hotter at the back of your cooker than it is the front of your cooker. So go through all that stuff and, you know, teach them how to trim a brisket. Like, how to brine a chicken. Like it's, you know, it's what we do. So
I must admit, I'm asking more out of curiosity because, like, it's just something that I know now is not the time, but I feel like it's something I would love to just sit there and just take on as a role someday in the future. But I'll that's more my interest than anything else. But that's awesome. And I mean, how much of that do you because you do master classes, and then you got one tonight as well. How much of that do you bring to the master class?
All of it.
Awesome. Well, that's done.
The thing is, like, I've made a ton of mistakes, right? Tons. If you're not making mistakes, you're not trying. That's the way it is. Like, So hopefully I bring all the knowledge that I've learned over like nearly 20 years of cooking barbecue, from cooking it in my backyard to, feeding 700 people in one day type thing at the restaurant. So
Wow. Yeah.
I bring it all, to be honest with you, and it's not, and like I say to people, like, it's not rocket science. Like, get yourself a meat probe, you're halfway there.
Yeah.
Like
How important is that meat probe? That's just game changer.
Like, yeah. It's the most important thing. Is like,
Yeah.
I tell people, like, of all the things that you can go out and buy a meat probe. Like,
instant read. It's $30.
Yeah, cheap as chips. Buy it, change your life. You can use it on if you're cooking a steak, to make sure you're cooking on your steak properly, like the way you want it.
Yeah.
Still use
the amount of times I use things now for the meat probe just around the house, like things that just you wouldn't normally do. So I'm like, I just want to check. I'm like, oh yeah, that's done. Because like, if you're steaming something, that sounds silly, but you're going like, I'm like, oh, I just want to make sure. Okay, it's cool. I don't need to go any further. It's done. Yeah. It's a temp. It's at the right temp. You're not eyeballing. Even if it's like dim sims, you're like, is that? Am I good? I don't want to cut it open.
Yeah.
I know you can't ruin dim sims, but you can over steam it. But the meat probe's amazing. Sorry, I'll come back to my point.
No, they're really good. Like,
my wife just laughs at me. She's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "Just calm down. I've got this."
Yeah, that's
the best dim sims you've had.
Yeah, and like a lot of people are afraid of chicken, right? They're afraid of it.
Yeah.
They're terrified of like undercooking it, and so that therefore they go and cook it within an inch of its edibleness.
Yeah.
But if you've got a meat probe, it's either cooked or it's not cooked.
Yeah.
So like, if you cook it and you probe it and it reads the right temp, then it's done.
Yeah.
You don't need to overcook chicken. Like, it's the worst thing in the world, overcooked chicken. Like,
no, that's it. And it's just it's amazing what, like, chicken at that like cooked temp, how good it is, and how moist, how much moisture it has. Whereas if you take it over, you can still eat it, but it's overcooked. Yeah. No, so I mean, obviously, you've sort of got a whole bunch of rubs and sauces now for sale as well.
Yeah.
I was just prying through your website, and obviously I saw them at Meatstock when we caught up a couple of times. Yeah. How much have when you started, and as opposed to now, how much of those rubs and flavor profiles and things like changed? Have you adapted over the years, or are you sort of going like, mate, this is bulletproof, this is what I love?
Well, I ain't changed it all, really.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I haven't. Like, like in the restaurant, so brisket, salt and pepper, that's it. Salt and pepper all day long. No onion powder, no garlic powder or anything like that. Because you got to, like, my brain works sometimes around, I've got to feed people who've got fructose intolerance, something. You know what I mean?
Yeah, true, yeah.
You can always have the brisket or the beef rib, because it's always going to be just salt and pepper.
Straight up, yeah.
Pork's always been like a sugar-based spice rub. That's the same one that I'd use when I first started. Only things that we developed is like the lamb rub for retail. And that's about it. The rest of the stuff I've been using forever. They're all same stuff that we use in the restaurant. It goes in those wraps.
Like, yeah, real. That's cool.
Yeah. So
I've got to try them out. Yeah, I'm dying to come down, Martin. I know we've talked about it since I met you up in. I think it was the first time I met you in Melbourne. So we've got to catch up, and I've got to come down and have a feed, because it'd be awesome, mate. Now, look, I want to pick your brain from it, because obviously I love cooking a bit of barbecue ribs. And things like that. And I know everyone's got their slightly different ways. And, you sort of mentioned backstage that they're a bit of a tricky bugger. But maybe if you can maybe just give us a few tips on pork and beef ribs, and start with the pork and how you tackle them, and what you're aiming for when, because I know, like, Tuffy Stone was I love listening to the way he cooks. He sort of talks about, he calculates things as to how much it's going to cool down, and then it hits a judge's mouth when he eats it. I know it's a bit different because obviously the restaurant and things like that. How do you go with pork ribs? What's your what are your tips for, I guess, somebody attempting them?
Well, number one, pork ribs in Australia compare the US to completely two different things.
Oh yeah, every time I see a video, I go like, I want those ribs.
Yeah, they're not the same beast. So the pigs, when they get slaughtered over here, are much, much smaller. So just like, that's the nature of the beast. So you're never gonna get that same.
So no 3, 2, 1, you're saying?
Well, 3, 2, 1's like, it's silly. Like, temperature, man. Get your beat probe out. And never do 3, 2, 1. 3, 2, 1, like, you're going to ruin your dinner if you use 3, 2, 1. So what I do is I obviously get a rack of ribs, if baby backs or St. Louis kind of cut. With the baby backs, I take a bit of the loin muscle off because it dries. So not but like if it's got a big bit of loin on it, take that off. I'm going to trim it. I'm going to sausage, and then literally take the membrane off the back, put rub on it, let the rub go tacky 15, 20 minutes, and then pop it in the cooker and cook it at 250. I'll cook everything at 250. Let's not make things complicated. Just cook it at 250.
Yeah. I'm sort of with you on that one. I know you've done it for like 20 years, so many years, but I don't know. I find 250 just a nice temp. You kind of like,
it ticks along nicely. 225 is a bit slower. 250 ticks along nicely. Then I let the bark set. So like I let it go like hard and dry. If you don't want to give it a little spritz at this point, if it goes dry too early, give it a spritz. Just spritz. And spritzing really is about not necessarily like that piece of meat is going to be as moist as it's ever going to be inside the kind of intercostals or whatever. Like spritzing's about slowing down the cook and or improving the ability of the piece of meat to take on smoke. The smoke's soluble. As soon as you can imagine it, like if it's dry, no smoke is going to cling to it. There's nothing.
Passes over.
It just passes over and away you go. So that's why you spritz it. And then once it reaches about 165, 175 internal, I'll take it off. I will then I paint them first, to be honest with you. I'll get a big vat of barbecue sauce and just dunk them. Put them out. They're completely covered. Pop them back in until they reach about 175. Then I take them out. Then I pop them in foil. And I don't do butter. I feel butter's a bit like rich. But we just use a thin base barbecue sauce, fairly thin, not really thick stuff, super Kansas City, like just gluggy. So it's thin, a bit of brown sugar, whack it on there, wrap it up tight, and then put it meat side down back in the pit, and then cook it to 195. It'll pull it out. It'll probably go a little bit further when you pull it out, and then just let it rest. And the rest is really important because when you open that up, all the steam's going to go out. If there's steam involved, it's going to loss of moisture. You want to make sure it comes down. So I bring mine down about 60 degrees Celsius.
Okay.
About 140 Fahrenheit, something like that. And that's what the temp we serve them at. But we've got Alto Shams and hot boxes, and we keep everything warm for yonks. So, when people say is barbecue cooked fresh, well, it was cooked fresh 6 hours ago.
Yeah.
Just had a rest.
It's had a big rest. I think it's important for people to know that like you can't just go like, it's not like everyone can turn up at 2 in the afternoon when everything's ready to eat. You kind of have to, you got to hold it for people to come and enjoy it when they're ready to eat. So it is, it does make a big difference. Yeah.
And the hot holdings are one of really like that rest is so incredibly important. Like it just allows all that heat to and energy in that rib or brisket piece just to give up, just to go. So like people who serve too early, you're either going to have something that's really rubbery or a bit unpleasant, really. Like the rest is important, Yeah.
I think that's what every cook is, like even steak, if you're doing steak or whatever, like even a few minutes rest makes such a big difference.
Well, absolutely. And it's the big difference between cooking a steak and cooking barbecue is that, you let a steak usually come up to room temp a bit before you cook it, where my barbecue goes straight from the fridge straight onto the cooker.
Yeah, right. Okay.
And the longer it can spend in those lower temperatures, like the more smoke it will take on.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
The more time it'll have to break down all that collagen and intramuscular fibery stuff, and it'll become more soft and delicious. So straight from the fridge, cold, stick it in your cooker. I know it's mental, but that's what you do.
No, that's it. And I find barbecue so unique in the sense of how many different, even though you're primarily doing the exact same thing from a cook point of view, how everyone's got very slightly different variances in that process.
Oh,
Still making
absolutely.
delicious barbecue, but it's just it is an interesting one that everyone's got so many things. But it's nice to be it's nice learning from someone obviously who's done this for quite a few years.
Yeah, and the way I cook my barbecue will be different to, it's different to when I went and cooked in Georgia. Like the way they cook and the way I cook is different.
Yeah,
You know,
right.
we're still
Yeah,
temps very similar, but like the actual processes, are very like I will wrap every single rib. You know what I mean? Every rack of rib will wrap individually. I know barbecue joints that will get a wrap pan, not a wrap pan, sorry, just like a gastron pan, like a big,
yeah,
and put
yeah.
them all on each other. And
Oh,
then
okay.
put
Yeah.
apple juice, cider vinegar, whatever, barbecue sauce in the bottom, and they let them do that steaming process when they're all together
Yeah.
instead of individual wrapping. You know what I mean? So
Yeah,
like
that's interesting.
people do it different. It's fun.
Look, we've got a question from Manny from Manny's Cafe. He's also saying once the rub goes on, do you put it back in the fridge until the smoke is up to temp, or do you leave it out to set and get tacky? I suppose.
Oh, I'd bung it back in the fridge like at least 15 minutes, 20 minutes.
Yeah, right. Cool. There you go. Yeah.
Yeah. You can
Hope
leave
that
it
helped,
over.
Manny.
The problem with leaving it overnight, right, is that what happens is that if you've got any salt in your rub, it will draw moisture out your brisket or pork
Yeah,
shoulder or rib, and it will become really salty like a saline solution. But then it will go back into your product, so it'll go back into your rib, so it'll create a really, it's like it's dry brining essentially. So it will
Yeah.
change. So if you leave it too long, the mouthfeel of your meat will then change because you have
Yep.
give it dry brine rather than be kind of super fresh. But if you leave it in there overnight and it draws out a bit of moisture, you just lost a bit of moisture. That's life.
Yeah. What I find too with barbecue, like it's, I mean, there's a lot of learning, and you do make a whole bunch of mistakes, but then it gets to a stage where you sort of understand the cook, and you go through cooks on a regular basis, and you kind of go, there's like even, and then in the end, like even bad barbecue actually tastes pretty damn good compared to what you did maybe 6 to 12 years, 6 to 12 months ago, because you've just, you kind of go, oh, that's not great, but man, it's still delicious. It's just like percentages of improvements you could make. So it's good once you learn it. It's great that you can actually just appreciate barbecue, even though it might not be that optimum stuff. So now, just quickly with the beef ribs, mate, do you wrap your beef ribs? I know a lot of people sort of run those straight through, and I find
the reason why I wrap them is because I want to get them done.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, I know you're in a totally different, because you're trying to serve people, whereas I'm trying to make a video. So I'm just like, I need this done before it's dark. I need light to film this. But you keep going, mate.
No, I wrap beef ribs, just wrap them in foil. I don't like. I've never been a big fan of the pink paper.
Yep, butcher paper. Yeah.
I've always struggled with it, to be honest with you. And I learned with foil because butcher paper didn't exist. Like it literally didn't exist. Like it wasn't in the country. So that's been a new kind of thing over here for the last few years. It's been coming into the country. But I always use foil. So that's what I've messed around with paper, but I just can't seem to create the same consistency of product as I do with foil.
Oh, okay.
And I've always found because my briskets are grass, and this is my theory, like it's not based on observation rather than science.
Yeah.
Like because briskets and whatnot over here, well, the grass-fed ones I use don't have a lot of fat. Mm-hmm. They're not quite as fatty as those. Yeah. In the States, you see a pack of brisket, right, and it's just white
chunk.
The big white. So it's got a huge fat cap on it. But what happens when it's in the paper? That fat cap renders. Well, I don't, and then therefore it creates moisture, and then that steams it, and therefore you get this really kind of, when you open up the butcher's paper, it drips like it's just like sodden wet.
Yeah.
And that's never happened to me over here with the briskets I've used, like never. So the only way you can make that happen is if you're using tallow or some other moisture additive in that paper to kind of get the same effect. But like it's too hit and miss for me, so I just don't bother. I go with what I know.
That's it. And look, and the
Good enough
thing
for
is, like,
Snows. It's good enough for me. Like Snows, I think Snows only uses foil. So if it's
yep.
good enough for those guys, it's definitely good enough for me. You know.
And I think I find it interesting that everything. I mean, obviously, it's supply and demand scenario, but everything that's sort of become popular in the barbecue realm has almost like double, tripled in price in the last 3 to 4 years as well, like maybe 5 years, right? So, and butcher paper is one of those things. And back then, you could probably buy butcher paper, it wasn't too expensive, but now if you got any sort of branded butcher paper, you're paying like $50 for a roll or something ridiculous. So it's just, it just gets. Whereas foil, I mean, you pick that from
Shipping, it's
Costco.
shipping, man. I reckon it's shipping and raw materials gone up just because of.
Absolutely, yeah.
Let me tell you. I'll tell you a quick story. So when I first started cooking barbecue, I'd pay. So Cape Grim, right? Good product, grass fed.
Yeah.
Greenham's like doing it for years. It cost me $6.90 a kilo.
Jesus.
$6.90. It was cheaper than pork. It was cheaper than pork shoulder. I think from memory, I was paying about $7 for free range pork shoulder back in like 2012.
Yeah.
And then brisket was even cheaper. And I remember it being $6.90 a kilo. And now, man, like I'm sure it's in the teens at least.
Oh, teens minimum. Yeah, absolutely.
Yes. Yeah. And so, like, that's kind of, you can blame me for a little bit of that, but not all of it. Well, because it wasn't a popular cut.
No, it wasn't. And that's the thing where, I mean, I think meat's probably the big one where, you could pick up some decent meat at a decent price, not so long ago. But now, like, if you want a full pack of brisket, you are looking at, $100, $150. So it's a fair commitment to cook for a home cook, especially.
Yeah. You need to remortgage your house to cook a brisket.
and that's where the fear comes to. Like, I mean, for the average punter to go like, oh, I'm going to buy these, even if it's $100 brisket, that's $100 worth of meat that if I stuff this up, like it's a lot of money. I'm just throwing that away. So, like, as opposed to just cooking something simple like chicken or pork. But that's all. Yeah. Look, thanks so much for the insights, man. Now, what's I know you guys do some collaboration nights and things like that. But what's next for Red Gum BBQ? Have you got anything planned? Any sort of changes, or besides enjoying the couple of awards from last night?
Yeah, I suppose we've got our subscription boxes that I mentioned earlier, which is our barbecue.
And where do those go? Do those go Australia wide or just local to your area? How does that work?
Vic wide. So Victoria wide.
Okay, cool. I'll check them out. Yeah,
we send them out via like cold chain kind of trucks.
Oh yeah.
Like we did with our like Father's Day boxes and things like that. So, and we go like first trip was Texas. We took you on, and then we've gone to North Carolina. I think we're going to Georgia next. I think that's the next trip.
That's unreal. So it's like a heat at home pack style thing.
Yeah, but it's regionally, it's region based. So it's like this is the stuff that we serve in the restaurant usually. This is like there'll be a few core items that we serve here, but these are things that me and Chef have developed specifically for the box.
Yeah.
So
cool.
So like there'll be South Carolina, there'll be North Carolina. We've just done North Carolina. Georgia, at some point we're going to dip our toes into Florida and do some kind of Cuban Hispanic flavors.
Yeah.
Cool. And then dink into New York. I know that's not southern at all, but like they've got some pretty good smoked products there with the old frankfurters and sausages and hot dogs and pastrami and I mean, like they it's not barbecue, but they dabbled in smoked meat. So we'll go there. And where else we go? Louisiana, Nashville. I spent a bit of time in Nashville. My wife's grandmother lived in Nashville, so we'll take you to Nashville. We'll take you to Tennessee at least, and on the trip. And then it's we do those and rubs and sauces still. Kind of put those out a bit more, kind of in a meaningful way. We're building a facility to do all that stuff. Like to manufacture that instead of just doing it at the restaurant. We've leased and we're slowly getting to a point where we need to fit that out and do that in a bit more meaningful way. And then just events and Christmas and summer and like we're planning for the summer now. That's how advanced.
Of course.
In advance we're looking into like staffing and ramping things up and what do we need to order to kind of make our lives easy and that's where we're at.
That's unreal, mate. And look, and just so everyone that's listening, so if you do want to look at the barbecue subscription boxes, redgumbbq.com.au is the place to
That's the
go, and
one.
you'll find it there. Now, mate, so good to have you on and have a chat. And I know this has been a long time coming. Just before I let you go, a couple of quick questions. Where do you get the inspiration from now? What obviously you've got a lot of historical inspiration, but what do you see now in the world and go like, oh man, I love the way those people do barbecue, or somewhere in Australia that you love visiting?
Well, I feel like there's some OGs, like the original folks of barbecue that I really admire in this country still to this day. Like like your Fancy Hankses and Mike and those up in the Melbourne, and Chris from Blue Bonnet. Like I still admire a lot and think they do. I think they do wonderful things. In the States, I spent a bit of time at Southern-style BBQ in Georgia. So like Harrison Sapp is a pitmaster there, and I've still got friends in Georgia. Brian Furman, who's in that neck of the woods as well. Like my love of barbecue is not really Texas, man. Like my love of barbecue is East Coast.
Yeah.
So North Carolina, South Carolina. Elliot Moss is someone that I've met and cooked with. From Buxton Hall Barbecue, Tuffy, I've met a few. Well, I think I might have met him once. But you know where the big movements in barbecue, in my opinion, is Charleston.
Yeah.
Charleston is you got Rodney Scott there, you got Swig and Swine and Anthony who owns Swig and Swine. You got Home Team Barbecue. There's a look. John Lewis and Lewis Barbecue. He's brought Texas barbecue to Charleston. So Charleston is like a bit of a mecca of barbecue, in my opinion. But a lot of those guys, like Sam Jones is an inspiration. Like these cool cats.
I saw you with the Rodney Scott book, and I sort of got it myself as well. That his story and how he used to cook whole hogs back in the day was bloody amazing, wasn't it? Just the amount of effort that went into cooking those things was just.
It was funny, his Netflix thing he did.
Oh no, I haven't seen that one.
Oh, he's done a Netflix thing.
Let's check it out. Yeah,
it's really good. But there's two blokes, right? They're sitting around a burn barrel and they're drinking beers.
Yeah.
One of those guys is Tank Jackson from Holy City Hogs, who I know, and the other bloke is Anthony from Swig and Swine. And I don't know Rodney at all. Like I haven't met him, but I know those two blokes pretty well. Like I still speak to them, so it's good to see them on that. To be honest with you, like it gave me a giggle. Like they're both. Tank is an interesting cat from Holy City Hogs. He raises pigs, man, and
you're right.
These rare breed pigs in I forget where. I think he's in Georgia, but I could be wrong. And he's just the coolest cat. Like he's big old beard Southerners, cooking. And so he breeds them and then he cooks them. So he's like this kind of this whole thing. He's an interesting dude.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's unreal. Now, Martin, look, thank you so much for coming on, mate. And you're definitely. Hopefully, we can visit you down there in Red Hill and check out the barbecue joint as well. Appreciate your time and especially the insight to everything that you do there as well. And again, kudos to taking on things in like the B Corp certification and things like. I think that's. That's great to see, especially small business that taking on such a big task. And all the best for the summer period, mate. Hopefully you kick ass, and hopefully we see you at even some of the meat stocks next year, because that was it was always good to see Red Gum BBQ, especially in Melbourne. Hopefully you guys are going to be heading in there. You reckon?
I haven't heard from him yet, but I'd like to.
All right.
It's fun. It gives me an opportunity to kind of go chat to people and get off the peninsula.
Yeah, especially in Sydney. In Sydney, you were in that like I don't have to cook anything. Yeah, you were cruising. It was good fun.
Yeah, it's good.
But thanks so much, mate. I'm gonna put you backstage and wrap up the show, and we'll hopefully catch up soon. And thanks everyone for watching, and we'll talk soon. Oh, sorry, I kicked him out too early. Oh, man, I'm really bad at this end of the show stuff. But look, that was Martin Goffin from Red Gum BBQ in Red Hill in Victoria. So if you are in Victoria or visiting Victoria, make sure you check him out and check out some amazing barbecue. The smoked brisket, also the brisket burnt ends burger I had from them was just amazing. So try that out. Next week, same time Thursday at 10 a.m. Is Jess Pryles coming on the show, coming on to give us all things meat science, and as well as talking about how to cook the perfect steak. So I think she's got a couple of different ways she's hopefully going to go through with us. So can't wait for that. Huge thanks to our sponsors, Brewery Colo and the Rub Society, rubsociety.com.au, and Brewery Colo down here in Ocean Grove, down in Victoria as well. So if you're coming down this side of the peninsula, make sure you check out their beer. And yeah, look, have a great week, everyone, and great weekend. And I'll see you next time.